Hey everyone, welcome to Mystifying Miracles. The story today involves somebody with car trouble and possibly an angel visitor. I'll dive into this story. Stay tuned. The story opens up with a woman. Her name is Suzan Klassen, and she's chatting with her husband, Rodney. He's driving the car, and they're entering a ramp onto a busy freeway. And as they're going up the incline, Suzan suddenly yells at her husband, "Stop, stop, we have to stop." She sees a car off the shoulder on the right side and a woman. The woman had dark hair. She was wearing a black dress, and she was just pacing right next to her car, back and forth, with a puzzled look on her face. Well, Suzan insists to Rodney, "We have to stop and help her. We have to." Well, cars are zooming past to get onto the freeway, so they're speeding up. So it's also early evening on a Friday night, so that makes it worse. But between all the headlights going by, Suzan sees all of this. And the woman's still, like I said, pacing. Suzan thinks to herself briefly, like, why doesn't she just get in her car? That's safer. That's so dangerous to be outside in this traffic like this. Well, her husband, Rodney, he suggests too, all in this moment, he's like, all this busy traffic, somebody's bound to stop and help her. It didn't have to be us. But his wife, Suzan, was insistent. She said, "No, I don't know why I have this feeling, but it's deep within, this guttural feeling. It has to be us. For whatever reason, we're the ones that are supposed to help this lady." Suzan begins praying to God that he would protect this lady, since this was such a dangerous situation, and that if God could also slow the traffic to make it less dangerous, at least for the time being, until they could reach her. Because you see, Rodney did pull over, but by the time he relented and listened to his wife and did so, they were much further ahead than the lady. And with all the traffic zooming, it was way too far ahead to just reverse safely all the way back. So they were going to need a break in this traffic so they could pull out, find a place to go turn around, and come up behind the woman on the ramp once more. Well, as her husband's looking for a break in traffic so that he can get back out to go find a spot to turn, Suzan's just looking back at the lady watching her. This time, as she's looking back, she sees a big man. He also was wearing black. He had a black shirt and khaki slacks. And he was pacing right behind this lady who's pacing outside her car. He was pacing behind her. Their steps were actually in sync, in lockstep with each other. Well, there's finally a break in traffic, so meantime, Rodney's pulling out onto the ramp to go up further to turn around. Several minutes had passed by the time Rodney and Suzan get their car back to the ramp and going back up it. They pull behind the lady's car. Rodney gets out and goes to the lady's window because she's now sitting inside the car. Suzan had actually seen, I forgot to say this earlier too, because as the big man was walking in step and sync behind this woman as Rodney's driving, she gets glimpses, and there's a point where he walks her back and the lady gets back in her car. Well, a few minutes passes, and this is now present where they're going up the ramp and they're behind the lady. And so Rodney goes up to the window while Suzan stays in the car, and he says, "Ma'am, what's wrong?" And she tells him, "I think I have a flat tire, but I think my rim's messed up as well." So she gets out of the car to go show Rodney the tire and everything that's wrong. Thankfully, she did have a spare tire, so Rodney gets to work trying to switch them. While that's happening, now coming into the scene is Suzan and Rodney's 5-year-old son. His name was Michael. He was also in the back of their car that day. And as he's sitting waiting in the car with his mom, he asks Suzan, he's like, "Mom, where did that big man go?" And Suzan's, she was lost in thought. So she kind of snaps to, if you will. She's like, yeah, oh yeah, where did he go? And she's also having the realization that her 5-year-old son also saw the big man. She'd totally forgotten about him for a moment. Well, Susan decides to get out of the car to go inquire about it. And she tells her son Michael, stay put, I'm gonna go. I'll be right back. She goes to speak to the woman, and the woman tells Susan, she's like, I had been praying that God would send me a kind family, maybe a Christian family, to come help me with my tire so that I could trust whoever stops, and feel comfortable. And Susan told the woman, she said, yeah, I had this intense buildup of pressure inside when I saw you on the side of the road. And it was like, I just knew we had to be the ones to stop to help you for whatever reason. And then she asked the lady, well, by the way, where did that big guy go? And the woman just looks at Susan like, what man? Susan says, he was walking with you. He walked you back to your car. He was wearing a black shirt, khaki slacks. She didn't know it at the time, but Michael had rolled down his window and he was eavesdropping on the conversation of the two ladies. So he yells out the window, yeah, I saw him too. And the woman's standing there thinking about it. And she's like, well, there wasn't a man here. And her eyes start growing wide as saucers. And then she says to Susan, she's like, maybe God sent me an angel to help protect me till you guys stop to help. Anyhow, Rodney finishes up, gets the spare on. They part ways, and Rodney, Susan, and her son are back on the road again. Rodney asks Susan as he's driving on the way home, he says, Susan, do you think it could have been really possible that you saw an angel? And Susan says, maybe. To be honest, she couldn't think of what else. The answer to that could have been. And then Rodney asks, just a normal question, I guess. It makes sense. But he asks his wife, he says, well, why didn't God just have the angel change the tire? Why did we have to stop? To which Susan immediately said, well, maybe God wanted us to be the answer to that lady's prayer. And kind of what was odd about this whole situation as well is that Rodney never saw the big man. Never did. Only Susan and only Michael, their son. And Rodney comes to this realization as he's driving and he says, had I seen that big man, I would have never pulled over to stop. I would have said, no, we're going on. She's already got the help she needs. Because, he just would assume she already has aid. So no need for us to stop too. And also, on the other hand, Susan says, I never thought of it that way. And I never thought of it or came from it from a place of like, oh, good, there's a guy. Let's not stop. Susan, on the other hand, was totally convinced. There was that yearning and that deep, no, we gotta stop. Later on, Susan tells Michael, her son, she says, Michael, I think we got to be part of a miracle tonight. We saw God answer prayers to protect that lady. And also, we were the answer to her prayers that night as well. Well, guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this one. Another passionate testimony that's just really cool to hear. I hope it was a blessing to you to hear it. And I hope you're having a great week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.